From the world of AV programming and control with James King, I'm Steve Greenblatt, and this is Ask the Programmer. Hey, James, I'm glad that we can be back for another session.
Oh, always great to be back with friends. Look forward to this one, Steve.
As do I. And we got this from listening to the community a little bit and listening to some discussions on Twitter. And James brought up an idea of what credentials are needed and what does the AV industry really respect or require in order to build your career. So, James, I'll let you fill in some of those blanks, and then we'll get into it a little.
Sure. So people who follow me know I'm very big on education, always be learning. As I am currently working on my master's MBA. And I know there's been a lot of discussion on AV and the AM, this Twitter in general, is the value of college degrees, the value of certifications, and are they really needed in any field? And I want to say I do know there are many bright, skilled folks out there who do not have a college education, and vice versa. I know many college educated people, and you look at how do you get where you are. So it's to me, it's more of what you put into it. I do have a bachelor's in information system. I have a minor in business studies. As I mentioned, I'm working on my MBA, and I have almost tons of certifications. I have a wall in my office that's full of them, of different AV certifications. I'm also currently a back burner, but I'm also working on my CTS. I'm hopefully you'll get it this year, but not guarantee on that. So I like to always be learning because I think it expands my horizon and learn more. But Steve, as someone who runs a business, especially for programming, what do you value a applicant who says they have a computer science background in programming or like a degree?
I love what you just said because always be learning is critical, and I think that there's value in having the degree, and I think that the degree give is kind of proof of credentials, commitment, and for me, I have an engineering degree, and I am so proud of it because I worked hard to get it, and I feel like it's just something that I'll never be taken away from me. But quite honestly, and it's funny because when I was doing it, I was realizing that not a lot of people who have engineering degrees go into doing engineering. so so a lot of them will kind of branch off into other things. Sometimes and many times it's business, but other times it's computer science or other types of um, uh, uh, areas of study or profession that may not be their core competency. I mean, for me, mine is pretty consistent, but quite honestly, I am really focused a lot more on business these days, and actually kind of a self study in business because I've never had a degree there, so I could kind of flip the script a little bit and say, should I be running a business without a business degree? It's the same type of thing that you can argue. Um, to answer your question, after a long-winded response, is that it is good to have, but not a must-have. And I think that the biggest thing that you learn with a degree is a thought process, and that's what they say about engineering is that it teaches you how to think and to troubleshoot and to find answers, not necessarily always retaining the information that you have, but knowing how to find it when you need it.
Yeah, that's a good point. To me, that's the most key, I think, is we don't know everything. You're not going to know everything. But if you know how to find the answer, that's valuable. Um, and it's just one of those things where you think about it's like, have you ever seen the movie Men in Black?
I have, but I don't know it intimately.
Gotcha. The one scene, it was a couple scenes, really, that really sticks out to me about the whole education thing is when they're bringing the recruits in and they bring all these bright, you have these high decorated military folks, and then you have Will Smith, who is a Joe Smo cop, and they're first off, they're sitting in this room with uncomfortable chairs, table in the middle, and they got to fill out this test, and they're all poking holes into the paper with their pencils, and Will Smith, the only one who grabs the table and drags it across the room so he can write on it. They go into another like simulation gallery, and of course everyone's shooting the big monsters, and Will Smith shoots a little girl, target wise, and they stop the simulation. They're like, "So why did you shoot her?" And he's like, "Well, I'm looking at all this stuff." And he's like, "That guy over there is just working out." He's like, "How would I feel if someone came in the gym and popped me?" He's like, "That guy's blowing his nose. He's not uh scary." He's like, "But a little girl on the middle of the street in the middle of the night carrying a physics book, something's odd there." And where everyone else left her alone. It's that looking at the details, taking the education and applying it. I think it's key more than the education itself.
So I think those again great points of being able to think and be able to apply information and I think what I found to be most important in our industry and if I look at my team, I have a mix. I have some with degrees, some with degrees that are not even applicable to what we do, not even close, and some without degrees. And I would say I can't say any of them there's a correlation between one or the other. What I can see is that there's a correlation between people who are committed and who are focused and who really have the desire to learn and to grow and to be responsible for their destiny. That's where I see the most success is because some of it is you're born with is a certain amount of intelligence, and then the rest of it is you have to work hard for it. And the degree doesn't necessarily uh, make either of those unnecessary.
Yeah, to me, a degree or a certification is just a tool in your tool belt. If you don't know how to use it and apply it, it's useless to you.
But I wouldn't discount and say that it isn't worth having, but you really need to be selective too. And and they always say that in AV there really isn't a major or a background that people follow in order to come into our industry, which is part of the problem with finding new talent and being able to bring new people in. Um, the if we kind of shift over to certifications, there's a certain amount I think of certification that shows baseline knowledge and credentials, but if but I again feel like it doesn't say so. So for example, we have certified programmers, but if I have a programmer who is not personable, not respectful, doesn't understand how to handle work with clients, is sloppy or disorganized, it doesn't matter that they have a certification. They're not going to necessarily make it too long, versus the other where I hate to see somebody being held back when they have all of those good qualities by not having a certification.
Yeah, I agree. And same with education. Like you look in like the corporate world and even higher education is you almost nowadays you can't get into like supervisor to management role unless you start your own business or you have a degree or like a master degree you almost need now. And like that's one of the reasons why I'm working on my master's to help further my career Not saying it will, but it's another tool in my belt to help me get to where I want to get. So yeah, it's definitely, I don't think it's require, but it's one of those things that in a world where everyone is fighting for a job, it's that one additional piece that makes you stand out.
Sure. And we can maybe save this for another conversation, but when it comes to trying to find jobs and be found and stand out, I can certainly talk to that when it, yeah, from a employer standpoint, because there's definitely different ways to look at that, but that's probably a topic for another day. If we while we wrap this one up, any closing comments that you want to share? What would be your advice for somebody who is trying to establish themselves, and how much emphasis should they put on getting the paper that backs up their credential?
Again, it's one of those things that if you're not going to apply it, then see if it's worth for you. Like what I did when I went for my master's was when I first decided I wanted to get my master's, this was maybe 8 years ago. I had a lot of people talk in my ear. They're like, don't go for this program, go for this program. Don't do this, don't do that. A lot of people in my ear chomping at. And I ended up enrolling into Homeland Security as my major, criminal justice, Homeland Security for my master's. And because at that time I was doing all the security cameras. So I felt it was good fit. It was a good program. I'm not knocking the program at all, but it wasn't, I didn't enjoy it. I connected a little bit with the subject matter, but then my second child was born. I'm like, I need to take a break. And that was 8 years. And when sat back down, I'm like, no, I need to get my master's. I was like, all right, what's going to get me where I want to get? And I decided on the MBA. Even when I was applying for the MBA, I had people going, no, you don't want to do the MBA. You want to do the MAIT program, which is Master's of Arts Instructional Technology. They're like, you do the AV, you do the technologies. This is going to be an easy course for you. I'm like, I understand that, but it's really geared for teaching. I don't want to teach. Nothing against teachers, it's just not what I want to do. I see myself getting into management. Now, if I do, if I don't, it's not going to be because I didn't have my MBA. And that's why I forcing myself into the MBA program. And I'm really in connecting with the material. So that's my advice is look where you want to go and find what will get you there. Is it going to be a trade school? Is it going to be a certification? Is it going to be a 4-year degree, 2-year degree, or is it going to be an internship? Whatever it's going to get you to your career goal, that's what you need to go after.
I was going to ask you if you thought that there was a lot of value that you gained from taking that break, because I feel like having that time to have the experience and really gather your thoughts, but also have the work experience probably brings a lot more to your program.
Yes, definitely having real world experience to apply to it is beneficial. Um, so I don't regret taking the break, even though I do regret it because now I'm 8 years behind on my master's, but it's just another path that you take in to get where you're going. And again, find your end goal and find what's going to get you there.
Sure. I'd argue that you probably are getting a lot more out of your program now. So, but I think that's probably a good place for us to stop. But I'd be curious to hear what others think, what others' experiences have been. Leave us a comment. Let us know. This is really can be a hot topic to discuss, but it would be interesting to know what everybody out there has either experienced or found, or what their perspective is on it. James, how can people reach out to you and find out what you're up to, and also share some thoughts about what we talked about today?
Sure. You can reach me at Twitter on at AV_James King, on LinkedIn, James King. Uh, I am on HEPMA board, so anything with HEPMA, I'm there as well. I write for Higher Ed Digital Magazine, the IT and AV column that comes out monthly. And I am, besides this podcast, which is weekly, I am also a weekly member of AV Life.
Very good. Always a busy guy. I don't know how you
Yep.
balance it all. For me, you can reach me on social media at Steve Greenblatt. That on Twitter and LinkedIn fairly frequently. You can ask, reach out, contact me. I definitely like to connect with people. You can hear a little bit of my other work on A State of Control, which is a podcast I host on AV Nation with Rich Vergoza. And you can also read some of my work on AV Network, and love to hear what everyone thinks, and continue to grow this community, because that's what this is all about. With that said, this has been Ask the Programmer.